I work at a funeral home, and we have a crematorium at work. This happened not too long ago, but I don't think I will ever forget it. One morning, I was sweeping the entranceway, and a black SUV pulled into our parking lot. A middle-aged man got out, and I could tell that he was wealthy. I clocked the Frank Bueller watch on his wrist. Nice. He came over and inquired about a crematorium service. Well, he literally said to me, "Can you burn a body for me?" I was taken back by that statement. Normally, we are contacted by the family members of the departed, and they don't always arrive with the body in the car. Then, of course, we need a certification of death and some other documentation. We need to be informed ahead of time, because we need to make preparations. He said that he called my boss already, and that the boss agreed to cremate the body today. His tone was pretty aggressive. He said that we needed to get this cremation moving fast. I asked him to wait for a moment while I went to check with my boss. I felt kind of nervous. This seemed highly unusual. My boss was the director of the funeral hall, and he said that we have to do the cremation as fast as we can. This was really weird. Why are we doing things so differently today? That's what I wondered. I could not do anything about it though, as it was my job. So, I went to open the ovens. I saw the body. It belonged to a man who looked to be in his early 30s. I had seen a lot of corpses before, but there was something slightly different about this one. His cheeks seemed pink. I usually check the corpses before burning. It's part of the rules here. I noticed that it was very clean and appeared to be without any trauma. We put the body into the coffin. I pushed the coffin into the cremation ovens, and after about 20 minutes or so, I heard this dreadful noise rising from the ovens. It was like a banging sound. Everything was suddenly plunged into darkness all around me. Life felt incredibly cold as I asked myself the deeply troubling question. Was he alive when he went in there? What hurt the most was the fact that there was nothing that I could do, because 20 minutes in the ovens at heat that high, everything is already burning. I could not move. My limbs were shaking with fear. I felt paralyzed. Was I hearing things? I could not be sure. Usually after an hour, everything in the oven is reduced to cinders, but I could not stand that. I needed to know. I managed to pull myself together and I stopped the ovens. I noticed that the rich guy was not around anymore. I was really scared, so I asked my boss to open the ovens with me. I told him that I heard a noise while they were on. My boss opened it up, and all the stench of grilled meat invaded our nostrils. It was kind of like a barbecue smell, and it lingered in the air. My boss then pulled the main tray out so that we could see. The body was half burned. It was facing down, and I was pretty certain that he was not facing downward when I put the body in. I was sure that the man was still alive when he was brought in. I imagine while the ovens were on, he was turning and doing anything in his power to escape. I had not been hearing things, and I was completely destroyed by this realization. This had never happened before. Never had I seen the body turned over during cremation. I was sat in the main hall with my head in my hands, struggling with the weight of the situation that I was in. My boss came over, and he handed me something. 10 million yen, which is about $77,000. He told me that telling my story to anyone would not be worth it. People would not believe me, and reminded me that the rich guy that I met would not be very happy if he heard that I was talking about what happened today. I quit that job, obviously, but now I am living on the money that I was given until I get a new job. I am not myself anymore. I can barely find the energy to get out of bed. I really cannot sleep these days, and my nightmares are filled with memories of that day. Hey, 2chan. I've been riding a certain train for a while, but something seems off. I always take this train to work, but it has not stopped at any stations for the past 20 minutes or so. It usually only takes 5 minutes, 7 or 8 at worst. Oh, and there is 5 other passengers, but they are all sleeping. Did you take the express train by mistake? Is it a high-speed train? Well, it's possible I may have just missed my stop. I will wait a little longer. If anything else strange occurs, I might bring it up here. Still no sign of stopping, so alright, I will take a look. There were blinds or something covering the window, so I could not see the conductor or the driver. The route is a private railway in Shizuoka. I tried knocking, but nobody answered. Can you see outside the window? Names of stations that you're passing, etc. We came out a tunnel, so we are dropping speed slightly. There usually aren't any tunnels though. It's a train from Shinto Hamamatsu. Looks like we're finally stopping at a station. You aren't going to get off there, are you? We are stopped at Kisaragi Station. I wonder if I should get off. I've never heard of this place before. Definitely check it out and on. No, stay on until the last stop. Oh, but it's probably already departing now. When did you get on the train? I've gotten off the train. The station is unmanned. I believe I got on the train at 11:40. I'm not finding any information on Kisaragi Station. And Hasame, your train was going for over an hour. Wow, that's really strange. Yeah, I'm not getting any results for Kisaragi Station either. I'm looking for a schedule so I can get back, but I can't find one. The train is still stopped, so it would probably be safest to get back on. Well, it left while I was writing that. Is there anyone nearby or any buildings? It's cold out, so be careful. I will look for a taxi from the station. Thank you very much. Sounds good. Take care. Way past the last train, at an unmanned station. Really questionable if you'll have any luck finding a taxi there. There don't seem to be any taxis anywhere. I called home and asked to be picked up, but neither of my parents seem to know where Kisaragi Station is. They will look for it on the map so they can come and get me, but I'm getting a little bit scared now. What about the others? Are you the only one who got off the train? I checked online too, and the name Kisaragi Station is not coming up. Am I wrong in assuming it's around Shinto Hamamatsu? I'll check Yahoo. I looked for a public phone, but there's nothing. And no one else got off, so I'm alone now. It's definitely called Kisaragi. Sometimes they have phones outside the station. I'm looking into it. Apparently it's written with the kanji for devil, but it's read Kisaragi. Devil Station? Yikes. Are you a gaming nerd? 'Cause a game comes up if you Google it. Tell us the names of the stations before and after Kisaragi. What do you mean, a game? It doesn't say what the next and previous stations are. Walk back along the track. If you start running now, you might catch up to the train. There must be houses around the station, right? Yes, there are. I didn't quite notice since I was panicking. I'm waiting for my parents to call while walking along the track. I tried checking town information on iMode, but it gave me a point error or something. I want to go home. There is really just nothing around here. All I can see are fields and mountains, but I think I'll be able to make it back if I go down the track, so I will keep pushing on. Thank you very much. Treat this as a joke if you will, but can I come to you if I encounter any more trouble? Of course, just be careful out there. Sure, just make sure you don't run out of battery. Your phone is your lifeline right now. Don't get lost and be careful in the tunnel. You can get a signal out in the middle of nowhere. I kinda think you shouldn't stray far from the station. All alone on a cold night, at a station with no attendants. Soon the lights could go out, and it will be pitch black. It might be safest to wait for daybreak at the station now. Oh jeez, this sounds really bad. I got a call from my father, and he had many questions, but simply could not find my location. I've been told to call 110, which I'm a little bit opposed to doing, but I will try asking them to help me now. I really think you should wait until it gets lighter out before you do anything. Waiting all alone in the dead of night, and in some ominous place. Yikes. Going through a tunnel alone in the dead of night, and on some ominous train line. Yikes. I called 110 and tried my absolute best to explain the situation, but they thought it was all a joke and got angry at me, so I got scared and apologized. Apologize for what? Should probably give up for today. Wait for the first train. What's it like around the station? What's there? I hear what sounds like a beating drum, mixed with some kind of bell way off in the distance. Honestly, I have no idea what to do at this point. Get back to the station for now, Hasame. It's best to return to where you started, when you're lost. Here is where it gets going. Are they having a festival or what? You might think I'm kidding, but I am too scared to look behind me. I do want to go back to the station, but I don't dare turn around. Run, and don't look back. You can't go back to the station now. Run through the tunnel. I'm sure you'll find you're not too far. Someone behind me yelled, "Hey, don't walk on the track, that's dangerous." I looked around expecting to see an attendant, and saw a one-legged old man, but he vanished. I think I'm too scared to move. I told you not to look back. Run. Calm down and listen to Big Bro, okay? Check out where that drum is coming from. There's bound to be somebody playing it. Where the hell are you planning to take Hasame? How'd you know it was an old man if it was just a single leg? I think Hasame meant an old man who lost one of his legs. Must have been an old man who died and lost a leg after walking along the track. I can't walk or run any further. The drumming sound is getting a little closer. Wait for dawn. It won't be scary in the daylight. I'm still alive, but I fell and started bleeding, and I broke a heel, so I am sitting still on the ground. I don't want to die now. It should be safe if you leave the tunnel. Once you get out of there, call for help immediately. I called home. Dad is calling the police, but the sound keeps getting closer. I hope to God that's not the sound of a train, but it might be too late. I finally managed to make it to the front of the tunnel. The name says Isanuki. The sound is still getting closer, so I am going to leave the tunnel. If I am safe once I get out of the tunnel, I will post again. Good luck. This is the end. Forget about going back. Forget about someone chasing you. The sound you are hearing is just something you imagined. Run out of the tunnel. If you stop, you will only succumb to something which does not belong in this world. I left the tunnel. There is someone up ahead. It looks like all of your advice was right after all. Thank you so much. My face is such a mess from tears. He might just mistake me for a monster. He seems gentle and was worried for me. He called for a train to take me to the nearest station. Apparently, there is some kind of business hotel here. I am truly, truly thankful to all of you. Hasame, please answer me this one thing. Can you ask that man what the place is? I asked him where it was and he said Hina. That seems extremely unlikely though. We've been headed toward the mountains for some time. It doesn't really strike me as a place where trains would go. And he stopped talking to me entirely. My battery has almost run out. Things are getting strange, so I think I'm going to make a run for it. He's been talking to himself about bizarre things for a while now. To prepare for just the right time, I'm going to make this my last post for now. That was Hasame's last post in the 2chan thread. They never updated ever again. For reasons which I can't recall, when I was very young, I used to live with my grandmother in a rural village, located in the southern region of a prefecture that I do not want to name. The place where I used to live, despite the lack of communal options which made everyday necessary life activities, such as grocery shopping, laborious, was surrounded by beautiful, soothing nature, as acres of rice fields and farms spread across the landscapes. But few miles away from my grandmother's house, there is a road where car accidents happened on a frequent basis. The fact that incidents continuously occurred on that particular wide, well-managed and vivid road, specifically during the nighttime, always struck me as odd. According to the drivers who fortunately survived the car accident, told people how they saw 5 children blockading the road by holding each other's hands, which caused the drivers to sharply cut left or right in an attempt to dodge the children, hence leading to car crash. Now, my grandmother told me another story regarding that road when I was a child. I heard a story from my grandmother, which would be your great-great-grandmother, about that road. When your great-great-grandmother was still a child, there was a multiple homicide involving many children who got murdered on that exact road, as some of their corpses were found, but others were not. My grandmother believes that the vengeful souls of the murdered children are still loitering on that road, still looking for the culprit. I shivered out of fear before my mother, who was also listening to her story, quickly intervened. "Stop it, mother. You're scaring him." However, my grandmother completely ignored her daughter's complaint and kept on. Now, listen carefully. When you turn old enough to drive a car, and ever happen to come across that road, don't you ever, and I mean ever, stop the car if you see those children standing in the middle of the road at night. Remember that. My grandmother concluded her story. Although I spent days in that farmland living in fear thanks to the tale of horror that my grandmother told me, my parents and I ended up moving to Osaka. Alas, the memories of my childhood in rural village slowly began to fade away as I started to get used to my new urban life. Today I am in my 30s. I am a husband and a father of 2 children I had with my wife. As my children grew older, they began to show keen interest in outdoor activities. So during their summer vacations, I occasionally took them to see my grandmother back at the rural village where I originally came from. Regardless of her old age, my grandmother was still very healthy and vivacious, always excited to see her great-grandchildren coming for a sleepover. Then, one late night, when I was driving through the village to see my grandmother with my family for the summer vacation, after taking the highway from Osaka to my childhood village, as I cautiously looked around the dim ambience, I came upon a road indicating that my grandmother's house was not too far ahead. But what happened next, I will never forget for the rest of my life. As I drove through the road to my grandmother's house, dark, human-shaped silhouettes began to emerge in the distance. The silhouettes then manifested into children of age 4 or 5 as they held hands to form a blockade in the middle of the road as I fast approached. "Honey, stop the car," my wife warned. But before I stepped on the brake pedal, I remember what my grandmother told me when I was a child, about the spirit of the dead children causing car accidents. That was when I stomped on the accelerator pedal instead, and punched right through the band of children in a state of frenzy. "What is wrong with you? Turn back immediately." My mind panned back into reality as my wife bellowed out of terror. When I turned back to the spot where I should have floored the children, just as I expected, they were nowhere to be found. My own children were sound asleep as we finally arrived at my grandmother's house, at last. But my wife and I, chilled to the bones in the middle of a hot, humid summer night, never rested after that surreal encounter. I pray to this very day that those children would, one day, find peace and harmony as they depart to the other side. Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. This is the terrifying experience I had during a summer vacation when I was in 7th grade. I usually went to stay at my relative's house in a rural village with my entire family every summer. However, this time, I only went with my father, while my mother stayed behind to amend my older sister after she got injured from a car accident. Since I was a rebellious teen back then, I never greeted my relatives properly whenever I visited them, and tended to wander around the neighborhood alone until dinner, for I always felt uncomfortable being together with my relatives, including my father. I've come to this village every summer vacation since I was in elementary school and knew all about the neighborhood. But whenever I come here, I recalled the adults warning me, "Children, never go to Shrine A." Shrine A is rather old, but I have personally never been there. Whenever I asked my father why children aren't allowed to go to Shrine A, he always replied, "Because only adults are allowed to go there." My father's vague answer only made me more curious about the shrine even more, but I was also afraid to go there alone. As I was pondering, Bunko, this is just an alias, my relative's neighbor and a good childhood friend, approached me. "What you doing?" So I told her that I was planning on going to Shrine A. Then she proposed to bringing in more kids from the village to join my supposed horror adventure. Alas, I agreed. At 11 p.m., I snuck out of the house to go to the rendezvous point in which Bunko was waiting, while my father and the rest of the relatives were drinking. Upon my arrival, other familiar faces from this village were there. Remember, these are all aliases and not real names. Chihiro, Daigo, and Erika, along with Bunko, showed up to join. I always wanted to go to Shrine A, is what they all agreed. We knew that Shrine A was located approximately 20 minutes away toward the mountain from the village, where Bunko's and my relative's house were. Adults who lived in the vicinity prevented us from going into that mountain, for we were too young to go in. But from my experience residing in the village for some time, I had a rough idea on where the shrine would be within the mountain, and so did the rest of the kids who followed Bunko tonight. In order to reduce our chances of getting caught, we vowed to return to our own houses right after seeing the shrine for a brief moment. during our way to the shrine in the dead of night, my heart was filled with excitement, as I was slightly scared. I wasn't too apprehensive though, thinking that the adults prohibited children from going to Shrine A solely because it was located within the mountain, hence, making it dangerous for children to visit. In addition, with this number of people, there would be no way a ghost could appear in front of us, or so I thought. At the end, we finally arrived at Shrine A, and upon observing the old corroded shrine entrance gate, erected all alone in the middle of the dark woods, I immediately regretted ever wanting to come here in the first place. I thought about leaving, but noticing Bunko and the rest of the kids were advancing further into the shrine, I had no choice but to reluctantly follow them. The shrine was rather small in size, as the shrine altar was positioned only a few feet away past the entrance gate. "Wait, that's it?" Bunko said in a disappointed tone. "This place ain't that scary after all." Chihiro followed, as Daigo suggested. "Let's go home." "Yeah, our moms were gonna get mad at us." Erika joined Daigo's side, and so did I. However, before we could even exit the entrance gate, Chihiro opened the door to the miniature shrine altar. In the instant that he glanced inside the altar, Chihiro let out a short yelp and collapsed onto the ground, with his own hands covering his mouth, rolling sideways. Next, Chihiro removed his hands from his lips, then started to frantically scratch his own throat, to the point where blood emerged from the surface of his skin. "I'm going to go get Grandpa," Erika exclaimed, as she and Daigo rushed off, while Bunko and I helplessly stared down at the struggling Chihiro, completely paralyzed out of fear and frenzy. Although, Bunko and I had to stop Chihiro from inflicting more damage to himself before the hemorrhaging could get any worse, so we both tried to pin down Chihiro's limbs until Erika came back with her grandfather. Chihiro's spasm, despite his slender limbs, was so intense and powerful that Bunko and I had to invest all of our strength just to separate Chihiro's single arm from going anywhere near his neck. Then suddenly, the sound of multiple footsteps were heard from a distance where we originally came from. Mr. Fukuda, again, not real name, Erika and Daigo's grandfather, took one abrupt look at both Chihiro and the altar, and then shouted, "Nodogami-sama." Next, Mr. Fukuda grabbed Daigo and commanded, "Report this to the village councillor, so that he may bring Granny here. As for the rest of you, go back to your houses. Granny will sort this out." Mr. Fukuda instructed to us, and as much as I was worried about Chihiro, I did exactly what he said. Returning home, my father strongly lectured me for disobedience. Meanwhile, feelings of remorse accompanied by guilt for letting such a horrific incident happen to Chihiro brought tears to my eyes. Seeing the state of sorrow that I was in, my father calmly began to explain. "Look, Nodogami-sama might have bitten Chihiro, but he should be with Granny by now, so it's all taken care of, understood? After all, it's my fault as well, since I didn't tell you why kids are banned from going near that shrine." When I asked my father who or what Nodogami-sama is, he explained to me that the name Nodogami is written as throat-biting in kanji. Its origin, as the village legend goes, long ago, a mother and her young son starved in this village due to being segregated by the other villagers. Before his death, her son cursed the entire village by vowing to bite off the child's throat so that they no longer may be able to swallow food, and make them feel the same agony that my mother and I felt. Since that day onwards, children in the village began scratching their own throat until they spat out blood and die, one by one. This diabolical phenomena persisted until a traveling exorcist came to the village and sealed the vengeful spirit of the dead son inside the altar of Shrine A, once and for all. Moreover, the granny who is currently healing Chihiro is the descendant of that traveling exorcist, and only she possesses the power to seal off the malevolent spirit to this day. I left the village with my father the next morning. Since that night, my stay at the relative's house during the summer vacation was cut short from a whole day to only half a day, not as a punishment for my parents, but out of a personal sense of safety. Although, that did not stop me from keeping in touch with Bunko and the rest of the kids from that dreadful night, including Chihiro, who recovered from that injury without a single trauma or scars on his throat. Today, as an adult, I still refuse to go back to Shrine A because even after decades passed, the horror I had partaken that night is still perfectly burnt into my memory. This is a story when I went to my friend's house for a sleepover as a middle schooler. I have been to my friend's house many times. His house was fairly new, with a great sense of architectural design, and there was nothing scary about it, except for one thing. Going further into the road juxtaposed to my friend's house, there is a graveyard near the mountainside with numerous Buddha Shiva statues. There was nothing scary about that place during the day, but whenever I went out to play with fireworks at night, I constantly glanced back towards the graveyard, with chills running down my spine, for I've always sensed as if someone was looking at me from a distance. One late night, my two friends and I decided to play some video games after dinner. One of them prepared the console, while the other, the girl who lived in that house, was using the restroom. My lazy self, instead of helping my friend who was setting up the console, tried to take photos of my friend with a disposable camera from behind. I did so because there were only 3 more shots left inside the camera's film case and thought I would use it all tonight. The camera flashed as I pressed the shutter, shooting a photo of my friend's back as he was about to turn towards me. The TV was completely turned off when I took the photo. My friend was initially mad about it, but ended up laughing off, and when my other friend returned from the restroom, all 3 of us proceeded in playing the video game. Everything seemed ordinary at the time. After a few days, I brought my disposable camera to the camera shop to print out the photos inside. Bringing back the set of the printed photos to my house, I looked at them one by one in nostalgia inside my room, before finding one that caught my attention, as if it called out to me. It was that photo of my friend's back, who was preparing the console. In that photo, there was the face of a man glowing in green within the TV screen, despite the TV being turned off at the time. The glowing green man's face had a pair of eyes that were looking directly at me instead of my friend, and a nose, but anything below that was gone. As the man's eyes met mine, I let out a loud scream and fled my room to my parents in tears. That photo was my very first ghost picture I've ever taken in my life. Both of my parents were equally frightened upon looking at the troublesome photo and advised me to dispose of it. I could not disagree with them. For precaution, I have also showed the photo to my 2 friends that were in the house that night, and to get confirmation on whether there wasn't anyone else in that room, and if the TV was actually turned off. They both confirmed as all 3 of us shivered in our classroom. Our homeroom teacher joined the conversation upon hearing the commotion, and as she took one look at the photo, she let out a loud yelp as well. After discussing with my friends on how to get rid of the haunted photo, we all unanimously agreed to bring it to a Buddhist temple for purification, but when the day came for me to finally do so, the haunted photo mysteriously disappeared from the stack of the printed photos that were inside of my desk, never to be found again. I skipped school the next day due to illness, probably caused by the series of paranormal activities I have experienced up until now. The next day, my friend's grandmother, who lived at the house that I frequently visited for sleepovers, explained to me that the TV in which we played video games on was placed at the same direction of where the graveyard is, and just above the TV was a passage to the afterlife for the souls to travel to from their graves. The green glowing man's face displayed on that TV screen still remains in my memory, even to this day. It is burned in there.